Elf Beauty is a huge success story, but did you know they believe their success is in part due to the diversity of their board? And the data backs them up. The Not So White paper, created in collaboration with North Carolina A&T, connects the dots between diverse corporate boards and positive results, which can include a higher return on equity, better price-to-earnings ratios, and even fewer discrimination lawsuits. Read it yourself at elfbeauty.com/notsowhitepaper.
As a founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports Network, Capital One wants to help you hear more about today's top female athletes, learn more about your favorite teams, and keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.
The Happy Half Hour.
Hello, friends. It's time for yet another edition of the Happy Half Hour. It feels like it's been a million years since we've Happy Half Hour.
Approximately, give or take.
Yeah, I think the last time we actually sat in the same place at the same time, was it even before the draft?
It was before the draft. Yeah. It was, I think it was between free agency and the draft. It's been a minute.
It's been the week before the draft, and that's because somebody, as soon as the draft was over, decided to go on vacation and leave somebody else here by herself at the control of the switches for a minute. But
he
that's
said,
all right.
Peace, have fun.
Yeah, I was like, here you go. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Well-deserved vacation, though.
Yeah, it was a good time. But work keeps happening, and where the Carolina Panthers...
News don't stop.
I know, it really doesn't. And where the Carolina Panthers are right now, we're at kind of that transition point. It's like, this is the team. Mm-hmm. You now know what it looks like.
Right.
We've seen the 90 people who are out there on the field every day. Next week, they'll start in with OTAs, get everybody out there at the same time doing their thing. But just now that it's all collected, and you can kind of get a picture of what's going on, you really do get a sense of what's being built here over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you were boots on the ground for rookie minicamp, and that's kind of where it started. And as you go through that with Tetro McMillan,
right.
And I'm not ready to commit to T-Mac yet. I may be too old of a human being.
I really want to ask him if he knows who Tracy McGrady is.
Or Tim McKyer.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, he was the original T-Mac in Panthers history.
My generation is Tracy McGrady.
We'll go through that later. We'll do the history moment later. But, yeah, I mean, you were out there rookie minicamp, and seeing McMillan out there, seeing Jimmy Horn out there on the field and the rest of the draft class, what was kind of the vibe that first weekend when you saw them all together?
It was a lot of fun. And, it was interesting, too, just to talk to T-Mac about everything, because he's coming in as a top 10 pick, arguably the face of this rookie class for the Panthers. And, is there any sort of pressure with that? And he said, honestly, not really. Like, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I think you see very, very little, like, actual football during rookie minicamp. It's more drills with a loose football-like structure. And so that was it. But you can't hide speed, and that's what Jimmy Horn Jr. showed during that rookie minicamp. Like, you could feel the speed coming off of him. That cat's just fast, and he can hit a different gear.
Yeah, now
that can be really exciting.
I could throw a lot of Panthers history at you. Jimmy Horn Jr., I'm just going to go ahead and call my shot now. He is going to be the fan favorite through rookie minicamp, OTAs, and training camp. In the same way guys like Jim Turner, guys like David Geddes were the fan favorites back in the day. Those were big guys who could run. He's a little guy who could run, but he's captured a lot of people's imagination already. And, he's kind of, when I got back from vacation, I stood out there and watched OTA practices a little bit the last couple of days. And just watching those guys on the field, one of the things you realize, and one of the things that's really stood out to me is, oh, my God, there are so many wide receivers.
I think there's 12.
You wrote about this week in the competition for the job, but, I mean, Adam Thielen remarked on it. I mean, he was the old guy who came back for a year with a young group, and then all of a sudden they kept adding to it during the draft. And, I mean, to bring a McMillan, to bring a Jimmy Horn into that group, I mean, Adam was, I thought it was interesting the way he told you, this is what we needed. This is what we lacked.
Because, I mean, no disrespect to anyone who has been here in the past, because NFL players have made it a lot farther than a lot of athletes.
Yep.
But there were times, the past year or two, where you're kind of conjecturing on who will make the final 53. And when you get to the wide receiver unit, it was kind of like, okay, well, here's 3. I guess this guy could be a 4 and this guy could be a 5. It was a little bit of that. Now you're going, oh gosh, we've already got 6 or 7 on this list. Like, who are we cutting?
Yeah.
And, even guys that were that came in as UDFAs, still kind of stood out in rookie minicamp. Canales mentioned Jacoby George, Kobe Hudson as 2 guys that he really, really liked. One of them, I think, actually is not a rookie. I want to say it's somebody that Canales knew from the past. He came in.
Yeah, I mean, Bryson Tremaine's been in the NFL before.
That's what I'm thinking of.
And he's here, along with TJ Luther, is kind of the end of the depth chart that people don't know as much about. But I
then
think,
Hunter Renfrow was still added in free agency too.
And I think, to me, that's one of the big lessons. And that's one of the things, as I stood out there on the practice field this week watching, it kind of comes in stark relief. You see all these dudes out here, and you're like, that's the competition Dan Morgan's talking about. That's what they want to build toward with this roster, because all of a sudden, I mean, you look at this thing and you go, okay, there's XL, there's McMillan, there's Adam Thielen. All right, check. Jalen Coker. Well, Jalen Coker played a lot of ball for this team last year, and you like him. David Moore, Mr. Dependable, who's been with Dave Canales in multiple stops. He knows, based on having seen it in 3 different cities, that David Moore can step in, play any position, and make a play for you in December when it counts. Dan Chisena, who's a speed guy who came in and made some plays on special teams, caught a couple passes last year. Now you add 2 draft picks to that. Now you add a couple undrafted guys who they like, and all of a sudden you're talking about, whoa, there's 9 or 10 dudes whose names we just said, there ain't but 6 jobs.
Right.
And that's the competition that Dan keeps talking about as he builds this roster out, not just for this year, not for last year, not for this year, but to become a sustainable whole. That's where they want to be. They've found that with wide receiver now. Now the job you've got to do over the next couple of years is just expand that to the rest of the roster.
And you know what I think is interesting, too, when you look at this particular wide receiver group, and I know you've got it pulled up over there, is there were times last year where it was kind of like, okay, well, we want our guys to be versatile, and that was something that Dave talked about a lot. And they were. Like you said, David Moore can play any position you need him to. They moved Thielen around. They moved XL around. And you want guys that can do that. But you've also got guys now that do very specific things. Yeah. And because of that, you can kind of game plan, I would imagine, a little bit easier because, Jimmy Horn and T-Mac are 2 completely different receivers.
Yes.
So what do you do with them? And those guys are different than XL. And so it's like you can play around, I think, with your chess. Like, you always say you want a chess piece that you can move around anywhere, but at the same time, too, I don't even know chess, so this is all based off a movie. Like, you want to have your king, you want to have your queen, you want to have your rook. Does that sound right? That sounds like a chess word. You've still got certain pieces that you need to have in certain places and that can do certain things.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's interesting to me about Horn is it gives them a chance to expand the playbook a little bit because there was a moment Devin Tompkins was in here a little bit at the end of last year
he was a speedy guy.
And had been with, Canales and Idzik and those guys in Tampa previously. The Jimmy Horn edition gives them an opportunity to take all the stuff they were thinking about doing with him and kind of build on it a little bit. And that's the thing. I can tell that's going to be the word we use the most this year is build. Because they're going to build on that playbook. They're going to add to the stuff they're doing because he does give you a different dimension. I mean, you can look at Hunter Renfrow and say, okay, well, he's like Adam Thielen, except, Jimmy Horn's a guy who's completely different from everybody else on this roster. Different skill set. So if you can draw some stuff up in the dirt for him, I think it's going to be an interesting addition for the offense as a whole and give Bryce more stuff to think about. So,
and then on that note, too, just like talking about things they can build off of with their previous playbook, talk to T-Mac about, obviously because of the stature and what you do, a lot of people are going to compare you to Mike Evans and especially what Canales and Idzik did with him in Tampa Bay. He is about 15 pounds lighter than Mike Evans, but they're about the same height. He's obviously still a bigger receiver. And I said, have you watched a lot of Mike Evans to kind of get yourself ready for this offense? And he goes, I'm sick of watching Mike Evans. That's all I've done. And so I think that's something that I'm not saying T-Mac's going to come in as a rookie and immediately, post 1,000 yards in his first year and what's Mike Evans going into? Like he's trying to get year 12 straight of 1,000 yards, I think.
J.J. Jansen says he's seen that Mike 1K logo on the board in Tampa about 8 times.
Yeah, so. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think it is something that they have at least told T-Mac, like, look at this. This is a way we can use you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. He's got the other thing that's cool that's happening now is you're starting to get a sense of these guys. Mm-hmm. And Tetero's got a little personality about him.
Yeah, he does.
He's a different dude. I mean, you've already got XL in there.
Yeah.
And in case you people haven't noticed, Xavier Leggett's got a little personality of his own. He's out there.
And they're two completely different personalities.
They are here and here, but it's going to be interesting to see those two kids kind of grow together. See what this thing looks like years to come down the road. But it has been fascinating. I mean, in being out there, again, I hesitate, having done this as long as I have, I don't want to make global declarations in May and June when guys aren't wearing pads. But that same level of competition that we talked about at wide receiver, you're starting to see at other places on the roster too.
Like defensive line.
Those defensive linemen, I mean, all of a sudden you see Derek Brown out there, and that's the big ad. It's like, okay, you get to add a $100 million free agent D tackle, a guy who just went to the Pro Bowl, set a league record for tackles in a season. Cool. You get to add a Bobby Brown, a Turk Wharton. You go in and bring in Cam Jackson in the 5th round of the draft, and all of a sudden you see that entire group, and it's like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 6 jobs.
Yeah.
Pick 6. And, last year, I mean.
Got 8, 9 guys.
Last year they were bringing guys in late in the year just because they were available. It was hard. It was a bad situation as people got hurt, and they were turning guys over left and right. The results were what the results were. But now when you see the fact that you can platoon out almost Ashawn Robinson and Turk Wharton, the fact that you've got Bobby Brown and Derek Brown, the fact that you've got a young guy in Cam Jackson who's competing for a job with LeBron Ray, with some of the other guys who were here in the past, Shai Tuttle, all of a sudden that room that was not a strength last year, it's too soon to say it's a strength because these guys hadn't been in pads yet. We hadn't seen what it looks like on the field. But Josie Jewell and Trevin Wallace's lives got easier because they got more qualified large people in front of them.
Yeah, and Cam Jackson certainly is large. You and I joked the other day that people didn't realize how big he was because he spent most of his college career lined up next to Desmond Watson.
Yes.
And then you see Cam Jackson by his own, and you're like, oh, he's still a pretty big guy too.
Yeah.
So that'd be something that, again, that's a tough spot for a rookie. That's a bigger learning curve than people realize going from college to the NFL in that position or anywhere along the front 7, but especially on the line. So having a little bit of depth there will help him, but excited to see him on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to see a lot more of all these guys over the next couple of weeks, about 3 more weeks of OTAs and mandatory minicamp to close it out middle of June. So I don't want to get too football-y here. We're just we're easing into the summer. We've got about 3 or 4 more weeks before we get into that break before training camp, and then it becomes real. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see those guys out there on the field the next couple of weeks just as they continue to kind of add and grow and get used to each other.
Speaking of it becoming real, you were not in the country when the schedule came out. Have you gotten a chance to look it over and kind of gather your takeaways?
I have gathered my thoughts about
I would love to hear Darin Gantz's thoughts on the schedule.
Here's how players look at schedules. Players want to know.
I have to tell you what Derek Brown told me about the schedule.
All right, go ahead.
So before it comes out, we were filming the schedule release, and Derek Brown and Robert Hunt were both sitting there. And I asked them, I was like, what do y'all care about when it comes out? And they both said, like almost simultaneously, I just want to know when Green Bay is. Right. They were like, that's the only thing I'm going to look at.
Yep. Weather is one of the first things. I mean, players will look at, is there a Thursday night game? And if so, when? When's the bye week? This year it's late, but we've gotten used to late buys around here for the last couple of years, so that's not necessarily a big change. But I think the other thing people look at is where do you start, where do you finish, both on the road this year. Where are you at over the holidays? And,
no holiday games.
You got that Monday night game the Monday before Thanksgiving, so that's going to be a little bit of a weird week. You're flying across country to play San Francisco on Monday Night Football. Dave Canales got his respect. the Carolina Panthers are out of witness protection. They actually have primetime game this year, and people are going to get a chance to see them. To me, the big red light item when I looked at schedule once I returned to the country, believe it or not, in Iceland, no one asked me about the NFL schedule.
That's crazy. I thought the NFL was a global sport.
They didn't know when the Panthers were playing the Bucs, and I was like, they play the Bucs in week 16 and 18.
They didn't put it on the side of a sheep and let it march down the road.
To me, seeing those 2 Bucs games in the last 3, that's like that little secret signal from the league. That's like the bat signal going up saying, we think you're going to be okay
and
this year.
And that could be the NFC South right there.
Because the Bucs are the establishment team in this division. The Bucs are the team that's won it 4 or 5 years in a row. And they're the standard that everybody in this division is chasing. So if the league is putting you against them coming down the stretch, they think that might be for a reason. So I think it's going to be curious to see how that goes. Having a Seahawks game sandwiched in the middle there, obviously with the ties, so many people here and there is going to be interesting. But, yeah, the end of that schedule is one of the first things I look at. It's like, when am I going to be cold? What's it look like around the holidays? That kind of stuff.
I don't think you're going to be cold really much this year.
Yeah, you say that.
I think you lucked out.
You say that. I mean, we'll be cold when we go to New Orleans regardless because
that's true. It's always 65 degrees in that building.
Sitting up at the top of the dome under the AC vents. But, yeah. You open with the Jaguars, and opening with the Jaguars is a good omen for the Carolina Panthers.
It's always paid off well. Darin, tell the people the last 2 times that Panthers opened against Jacksonville on the road.
Yeah, that would be 2003 and 2015.
Those numbers are significant around here.
What else happened in those years? Oh, that's right. They went to Super Bowls. I mean, I can't believe you and Jake didn't talk about this.
I'm actually shocked we didn't either.
Jake has it's almost like the Toy Story Woody doll that you pull his string and he says a certain set of phrases. Jake's probably got a string that you can pull and say, I came in at halftime against the Jaguars in the 0-3 opener and led a comeback through that game-winning touchdown to Ricky Prohl and set us on the course of Super Bowl. I figured Jake tells that story all the time. No, I mean, Rodney Peete was the starting quarterback for the 2003 opener. Jake comes in at halftime, leads the comeback. The rest is history. But, I mean, that one stood out to me, too. It's like, okay, I see you. And then, obviously, 2015 team started with the Jags as well. So
you know what I think is interesting, and this probably goes back to your point about, like, the league thinking, okay, this could be a race for the division. Mm-hmm. There is a division game week 3. There's not another division game until week 10.
Yep. Well, and division games late are kind of standard. They want, the league wants these games to mean something in week 16, 17, 18, for television purposes. So they're trying to keep things as competitive as they can. Yeah. But I look at the Bucs games 2 out of the last 3 and say, somebody's trying to tell us something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I agree. That'll probably be where it's decided. We hope that's where it's decided.
We shall see. We shall see. The one thing I know for sure about schedules is all the things we think we know in May.
We know nothing.
Turn out to be silly when you look at them in December. Because the first time somebody gets hurt, somebody gets on a heater, somebody surprises. Yeah, you never know how these things are going to go. So,
did you ever watch Faulty Towers?
I did not watch Faulty Towers. That's an English TV show, right?
It is. There's a character on there that's always like, I know nothing. I know nothing.
I could go Hogan's Heroes with you in honor of podcast Matt over here. Matt Hogan, our loyal producer. Hogan's Heroes had Colonel Clint.
Had an I Know Nothing?
I Know Nothing. It's it's a different time period. So anyway, that's your obscure pop culture reference for this week's episode. We should get that segment sponsored. But yeah, it's that time of year. It's summer. All right.
Yeah. Tell us about Iceland.
Tell us about Iceland. Matt and I could do an entire episode of this podcast.
Yeah, we learned that about Matt today.
Yeah. Podcast Matt, very into Iceland. After my first trip to Iceland, I am now also very into Iceland. I thought I got on a 767. It might have been a spaceship because when I landed at Keflavik, I was not sure what planet I was on. It's green in places you don't expect. There are rocks everywhere from the volcanoes that just went off. And I drove through a town that had been evacuated and has not been repopulated yet.
Since when was it evacuated?
April.
Oh, that's a little scary.
Yeah, Iceland is a beautiful country. If you're into nature, if you're into camping, hiking, all that kind of stuff, I highly recommend it. But that country, I started to say that planet, that country is actively trying to murder you every second of every day. I was almost blown off a cliff.
He's got secrets to protect.
Yeah, I've almost gotten blown off a cliff by 70-mile-an-hour wind gust while looking for puffin. I saw no puffin that day, but took the ferry down to the Westerman Islands, which were lovely, and saw many, many puffin.
Which I thought was a cartoon character until you sent a video.
Nope.
I didn't think they were real.
Not a cartoon character. I've seen actual puffin. You know, the other crazy thing about Iceland is I was driving around for the first couple days in a camper van. My wife and I did 9 nights in a camper van. It was outstanding. I highly recommend it and want to buy a van just to claim my American freedom.
I think we have two different ideas of what outstanding sounds like.
It was tremendous because you can go wherever you want to go, see whatever you want to see.
Yeah.
But as I'm driving around Iceland, I keep noticing all these tire tracks going off the side of the road. And I thought, is this just American tourist jackassery? People out here doing donuts in the parking lot like it's a Walmart in Arkansas? No, it's because there's a 30-story waterfall on the other side of the road. And as you're driving down the road, just kind of looking at it, it's like, oh, look at that. You know, the next thing you know, you're in an Icelandic ditch. So it was amazing. It was beautiful. The people were good. The people were a little flinty. I think when you live in conditions that are designed to murder you around the clock,
creates a certain vibe.
It makes you hard as a human being. But it was great. The people were fantastic. Here's the other thing.
Okay.
Hot springs.
Really?
Sit in a thermal pool of 40 degrees Celsius water for a little bit, then go jump in the lake.
What is that Fahrenheit?
It's like double it and add 30.
So 110?
110, that's
okay.
right.
You know I don't do math.
You get in a hot tub, then you jump in a cold lake, and then you have a lovely beverage of your choosing, and that's a pretty good way to relax.
Sounds nice.
That's a pretty good way to relax. So it's but it's Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, it is.
And you know what that means now that I'm just back from Iceland.
That means you're going to Canton.
I'm going to the happiest place on earth, baby, Canton, Ohio.
Which is not Iceland, apparently.
It's I think I'm going to get an award from Marriott because I may be the only person on earth who, in a 10-day span, stays at the Keflavik Airport Marriott, the Canton, Ohio Courtyard, and some other.
They're going to think that you got hijacked or something.
Like what? A credit card fraud alert's going to pop up. Why are you in Canton? No, we're gonna go visit with friend of the program, Jared Allen, Panthers legend, going into the Hall of Fame this year. Of course, Jared Allen played his last season with the Carolina Panthers, or at least most of it. In 2015. He was not around for that opener against the Jaguars, but he got here.
That was my next question.
But, Jared came in a trade midway through the season when Charles Johnson got hurt. They needed depth, so they just go trade for a Hall of Famer because that's what that team did. And Jared has flat out said that 2015, it was the last season of a decorated career, but he was like, that's when football became fun for me. Because he came in from a situation in Chicago, not great, to a team that would go 15-1 into the Super Bowl. And so Jared was like, man, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And he's been very great. I can't wait for you guys to enjoy some of the stuff we collect from him up there just because he loves talking about being a Carolina Panther, even though it was for just a short time.
Yeah,
so,
it made an impression.
No doubt.
That's when you know it was a good time.
No doubt. What else you got? Where are you going for Memorial Day?
I'm hitting the road this afternoon.
That's
and I'm
right.
heading to my yearly family reunion. We always get together on Memorial Day weekend and do a big reunion. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of sitting around, looking at pictures, telling stories. Sometimes we'll get on four-wheelers and go riding or something. I think somebody's going golfing with a group. I don't think I'll do that. But no, it's fun. I just get to sit around and hang out with my family.
I want to see Hill family on four-wheelers in Alabama.
You know what we do sometimes, because we'll go out in the field, and I'll send you a video if we do it this weekend, is we do what we call redneck surfing. And it's when you take the mat out of a horse stall, because you have to put mats in the bottom of a stall. So you take the mat out of the horse stall and you drill some holes in the front and you run a rope through it and you tie that to the back of the four-wheeler, and then you have another rope to hold on to, and then the four-wheeler pulls you around while you stand on the horse mat.
Kids, don't try this at home. That's a terrible idea, and we at the Happy Half Hour do not recommend it, okay?
Also, every year, every year, without fail, somebody goes to the emergency room.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
And it's never been from redneck sledding.
No redneck surfing in Alabama. Please do not do that. But please have a safe, happy, enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. Please join us on the other side. We'll talk to you after a couple days of OTAs the next time we get together on the Happy Half Hour.
Elf Beauty is a huge success story, but did you know they believe their success is in part due to the diversity of their board? And the data backs them up. The Not So White paper, created in collaboration with North Carolina A&T, connects the dots between diverse corporate boards and positive results, which can include a higher return on equity, better price-to-earnings ratios, and even fewer discrimination lawsuits. Read it yourself at elfbeauty.com/notsowhitepaper.
As a founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports Network, Capital One wants to help you hear more about today's top female athletes, learn more about your favorite teams, and keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.